We're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you all for coming tonight. My name's Hal Hefner. I am an artist. I mostly do pop art. That's what I'm most famous for. You may have seen my art on the street in Los Angeles. You may have seen it in the magazine, or you may have seen it being passed around the internet and memed and all sorts of stuff. But which I'll show you a little bit later. But really, when you peel all this stuff back, I'm just basically a 15-year-old kid still from a small town in upstate New York who has no idea what he's doing in life. I'm just winging it, and I'm having fun, and that's because I'm an artist. And so, I'm sure as many of you other artists know that it can be challenging growing up an artist, especially when you do come from a small, very conservative Republican town that doesn't really know what art is and doesn't really have an appreciation for art, which my parents didn't, but certainly took the time to support me and get me the art supplies that I needed and get me all the things that I needed in order to succeed. And so for that, I'm forever grateful. But art isn't easy, and it's not supposed to be easy, but you have to try to find the way to make it easy. And so that's hopefully what I can enlighten everyone with tonight, is how I've done that. And so for me, it was, I knew I was going to be an artist from the moment I could pretty much hold a pencil in my hand. And I didn't even think twice about it. It was just something that I was, felt like I was born to do. And so as a child growing up through middle school and high school, it just, everybody knew me as Hal the artist. That's pretty much what I did. I used to draw, I started off really finding out that art can make people laugh, and so I would draw my teachers and draw my classmates and draw, the TV stars and things like that, and compromising positions and all sorts of stuff. But I had fun. And so, knowing that that's where I was going with my art, I really, focused on that towards the end of high school and ended up going to a wonderful college in upstate New York called the Munson Williams Proctor Institute of Art, which was also affiliated with Pratt. So I essentially got a 2-year degree from Pratt without actually going to New York City to Pratt. What I did is I went to this wonderful gallery for school. So my first 2 years of art were all foundational art techniques, from two-dimensional drawing to color theory to basically anything that was foundational in fine art painting and drawing. And so for my first 2 years, I actually got an Associates of Fine Arts degree. And but after that, I knew that I wanted to do more than just fine art, because I was into comic books and into movies, and I really had this crazy aspiration of eventually working on movies and making my own movies, and I've actually done that, so it's pretty wild. From there I ended up transferring to a place called RIT in Rochester, New York, which was the Rochester Institute of Technology, and got a great education on the digital side of art, which I had really no idea even existed until I went there. And at first I kind of scoffed at Photoshop and all those things, and now it's what I use to do everything. But I apply all the foundations of my 2-year degree and then the rest of my degree as well. So it's just a different tool. And so after I graduated from college, I really was at the point of realizing, wow, there's no more staff illustrators, and ad agencies don't really hire illustrators but freelancers, and so I got kind of scared, and so I was like, well, let me just go to grad school. So I went to grad school for a month, and actually 2 months, and my professors, two professors, pull me aside and say, look, you've got a dream to go to Hollywood and do, and make movies and do your thing, so why are you wasting your time here? You need to go. And so I, had to look myself in the mirror and get the courage to follow my dreams. And so it's easy to say and it's easy to talk about, but it's not often easy to do. And so that's one of the things that, if I can impress into anybody's mind, is that the first step to becoming a successful artist is to not take no for an answer, to continue to grow as you as your career progresses, and to never give up. Like you have to keep growing. You can never give up, and you can never stop, even if somebody tells you you're not good. You have to keep going. And so, lo and behold, I moved to LA, and when I got here, I had to evolve once again. And so I started working with design programs and ended up getting a job doing design work as well as cartooning. So I had a day job and then I had my art job. And for a long time, it was like that. I had to have a day job in order to support my art because my art wasn't, making enough money to support me. So I ended up, my first real job in LA was as a graphic designer, and at the same time I was moonlighting and making cartoons for the back of Hustler magazine, which was pretty fun. But it got old pretty quick. So as things progressed, I continued to do freelance work and evolve my portfolio and burn the midnight oil, as well as continued to paint, but also continued to develop my Photoshop skills that I also was learning on the job as a designer. So it didn't take, it didn't come easy and it didn't come quickly, and so it didn't actually come together until like 10 years later, where my Consume series finally took off. And prior to that, I actually had done work for THQ, Coca-Cola, a bunch of role-playing games. I actually launched a comic book with Heavy Metal Magazine called Gates, which was their first digital comic. And I wrote it, I illustrated it, and I lettered it. And it was all done in a painterly style. So for the longest time, I was a digital painter, and I continued to basically digitally produce my work like I had painted. But I was always a comic artist too, and so at one point I just got to the point where I was like, I'm kind of tired of painting and I want to do something different. And so I took color theory, which I love, applied it to a graphic style, which I would describe as like a propaganda art kind of vibe. And then I used, the inspiration was of John Carpenter's film They Live, which was a cult classic, that was a very fun social commentary on the modern world, on greed, on consumerism, on racism, bigotry, hatred, and basically corruption in politics. And so I took this and I turned it into what we have here. And basically I've taken politicians, I've taken the narcissistic folks of Hollywood, such as the Kardashians, and I've taken them and I've turned them into these crazy alien overlords like the movie They Live. And so I just did tons of these, and the internet loved it and gobbled it up and shared it and and encouraged me to do more. And it was just a fantastic ride that I'm still on right now and still grateful for. And so you never know when you're going to have that one piece of art that is going to catch, and people are going to love it, and it's going to get you hired and going to get you jobs and going to get you the accolades that you thought maybe would never come. And so for me, it was this in this series. And so what I realized is art is not easy until you make it easy. And by loving what you draw and drawing what you love, it just releases this pressure that everyone feels as an artist to produce that amazing painting that will, be in a gallery, or that amazing piece of art that everybody will drool over, or that amazing piece of art that somebody will pass all over the internet. Once you stop caring about that, and once you just focus on drawing what you love and loving what you draw and working in that, and focusing on that industry that you love or that video game that you love, just draw what you love. Draw the characters you love. Draw the things you love. And when you do that, you make art easy, because you realize that it's your love for the subject coming through that makes it easy. And so once you do that, you lose all of the negative connotations that you can get from a blank canvas, or you can get from a just being intimidated by a deadline or anything of that nature. And then I think the other things that I've really tried to be are, and this is something that I actually picked up from a guy that I worked with. His motto was, I only want to hire people that are hungry, humble, and smart. And that really resonated with me, because I realized, that I was always hungry, and I try to be humble. That's how I was brought up, is to be humble, and I think I've continued to do that the whole course of my life. And smart. I've always tried to be smart. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room most of the time, or ever, but I really try to feed my brain with as much knowledge as possible, whether it is, reading a book or just learning something about the person that I'm drawing, or just a technique, learning and continuing to grow. It's one of the most important things. But I would say the most important thing is being hungry, because you don't have to be the smartest person in the world, you don't have to be the most articulate, you don't have to be the best artist, but you just got to be hungry. And hungry translates into a lot of things. It translates mostly into you never quit, you never stop, you're constantly drawing as much as possible, you study art, you educate yourself, and then, other ways to do that are talk to your idols, if you want to. Try to get in touch with the artists or the people that you idolize, that you love, and find out what they're doing and how they do it. That's all a part of being hungry. And then, find out where people like you creatively live online, in person. Find them and seek knowledge out. That's the hunger side of it. And then if you're humble, you'll be able to take in the criticism that you need without getting offended. Because, let's face it, criticism comes, and it comes hard, especially on the internet when it's unsolicited and it's given from trolls. So you kind of have to have a thick skin and deal with it. But also, one of the things that I really want to impress upon people is stand up for what you believe in, and stand up for your art when you need to. But don't, if you're wrong and walk away. And also, don't argue with stupid people, because you'll never win. So just forget about it. But defending your art doesn't mean you're not humble. It just means you believe in something, and that your art is there for a reason, and you did this for a reason, and you have every right to talk about why you did that. And then smart, as I mentioned before, know your art, the world you want to enter. And then, eat knowledge as much as you can, because it can be technique, it can be education about art subjects, it can be the news, it can be a book, it can be something that it can inspire you. But the key to being successful as an artist is just be an artist, embrace it. Be it 24/7. Don't just be an artist only when you're in front of your book. Be an artist when you're looking out the window at nature. Be an artist when you're in the shower listening to water drops. Be that artist all the time, and things will come easier to you. And then, the best thing that I can say to anybody is that if you do have to work with people, work with those people that are hungry, humble, and smart like you, and it makes it a lot easier. And it's not always easy to find and work with those people, especially when they're giving you the deadlines. Chances are they're not that. So, it's, as an artist, I think the thing that I've learned the most is that never giving up and being hungry is the most essential part of success, and it's not something that you can turn on and off. You either are hungry or you're not. And so if you're not hungry, then you probably don't have any business being an artist. You should go get an office job and just sit at a desk all day, because being an artist is all about the grind, and all about the getting kicked down and getting back up. It happens constantly, even to the most prolific artists. At some point in their life, their art isn't prolific anymore, so you have to keep going. And that is it, I think. That's about it. So thank you all for listening.
Do you have any questions? Would you mind that being on video?
No, not at all. No.
I can start if you'd like me to start with some questions. You mentioned one of the conversations we had relates to a question that was something you brought up, which is how to handle people who disagree. Right. And I know that you recently had an attack of disagreeers.
Yes.
I was wondering if you might speak to that, and what happened and how you've handled it.
Yes. So my art has become very political, and I didn't intend for it to be that. It just kind of evolved into that, and now I'm just riding with that wave because it's me. It's really, my art is a projection of my opinions, and that's what they are, is just opinions. And so I'm very anti-Donald Trump and everything that he and mostly the entire right-wing Republican Party are. And so I've been very vocal with my art and very very graphic with my art, and it's been shared all over. And I've attacked not only Donald Trump, but Vladimir Putin and the president of Egypt, and some very high-profile folks. And I had a WordPress site, which was a site that I've had back since like 2008. And so I didn't have any security on it, because I never needed it. I didn't even think of that stuff. And so I had basically set it so that it would update WordPress automatically. And every time WordPress gets updated, it fixes basically a way for somebody to get in and attack you. And so for some reason, mine hadn't updated in like 5 versions, and the automatic updates had stopped. So I got hacked, and it was the craziest thing, because I didn't notice it at first, because if you just typed in my URL, it worked. But if you searched it through Google or Bing or anything, it just turned up. It took you to my site for a second and then turned into porn. And so it was insane. So I got into the back end of my, I finally was able to get into WordPress and log in. I was having some real trouble. And so when I finally got in, I started looking at some of my code, and I had a giant swastika made out of numbers, and I had an actual death threat in there, and it was all and there was a whole bunch of basically right-wing propaganda in there.
Oh.
So it was interesting, and so what I did is rather than, and this is probably really stupid, but instead of like saving it so that I could report whoever did it, I just deleted the WordPress site and began to build this. So I just built a brand new website in 3 days. Nice. Which is much better. I built it, and it's secure, everything's good, I won't not have any problems again. But, so it's for a minute there, it shook me up a little bit, But immediately, I was just like, screw you, thank you for giving me more motivation, because now I'm going to attack you even harder.
Right.
So, for a second, I was like, all right, I guess I finally made it. When, I guess this is making it when now they see me as a threat. And so, it conveniently happened, and I'm not going to say it's Trump's people, but I think it's Trump's people. Because I actually, there was an interview done with me by Plaid Zebra, and they actually contacted the Trump campaign for a comment on my art, and they refused to comment. And so, conveniently after that, is when I got hacked. So, I don't know. But
so, I get my follow-up question is, and I think this speaks to not only your character, but your approach to art.
Mm-hmm.
After being hacked, you could have done any number of things, but what you chose to do was just build a new site and not bother chasing down, not bother trying to report. You just cut and run, and you started over.
Yeah.
And what you made was new.
Yep.
And better.
Yep.
And why was that? Because there's so many choices you could have made. You could have gone revenge. You could have fretted. There's so many things you could have done.
Yeah.
But you did that. Why? And how does that, I guess, relate to either your process as an artist or your efficiency in producing?
Because for me, I think the most important thing was to not have my art and my message be interrupted. And that's what they did. They interrupted my message. They interrupted my middle finger to them. And so I needed to crank it back up as soon as I could. So for me, it wasn't the fact that they hacked me that they won. It was the fact that they could keep me down that would be that they won. And so, and make me scared. And that was, in fact, it was the exact opposite. They've riled me up, and they made me stronger. So, for me, it wasn't, because like, I had a whole bunch of friends that were like, yeah, you need to report them, and you need to send the code, and they can, detect who it is. And I was just like, number one, I don't really want to deal with the FBI or any of that. I don't want to go through that. I'd rather just rebuild my site and then attack, load my attack, which is my own arsenal of art. Art is my weapon against them. So for me, it was just about stopping the message of being interrupted, getting my website back up, and getting my art back out there. And then the following week, I came right back with a piece of art attacking the Koch brothers, who are a big right-wing propaganda machine that funds a very libertarian, evil message through the Republican Party. So I just put on bigger boxing gloves.
Will there be a follow-up to Trump, or a follow-up? Can we expect art relating to the attack?
What there's going to be is actually which I'm very excited about, which I've kind of dropped hints on. I've decided to, one of the things I'm doing this year is I love Consume, and I know I'm known for it, but there's only so many pieces of They Live that I could do without wanting to vomit looking at them. So I'm kind of to that point where I'm ready to evolve it to the next level. And so another piece of literature that's had a profound impact on me was George Orwell's Animal Farm. And if you look at it, it's very, very, very relevant to where we are today. Trump is completely this, dictator, Napoleon-like figure. And so what I've started to do is take the political spectrum and the spectrum of Hollywood and all, just all these people that surround us, from Mark Zuckerberg to Steve Jobs to, Apple and products and things like that. And what I've decided to do is kind of project it into an Animal Farm-like scenario. And so I have some new pieces coming out that are going to be very kind of like animal-centric that I'm actually also putting together pitches for a animated series for it as well. So to say that I'm coming back stronger and more fierce, yes, I am.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything? No? No? Brian? No. My final question is, when you did your own comic book, how difficult was it to not only do the inks and colors, but to then follow up with the lettering?
It was very painful. It was, and I would say the biggest part of it being so painful was that I was trying to fit my style into a medium that I wasn't comfortable in. And so trying to tell stories in panels was something that I had done a little bit, but nothing to the degree that I needed to do it here. So I would say for the first 25 pages, I was finding my way. And then I realized I started to get into a flow. Now, the big problem with it, too, is that I was doing very detailed, semi-realistic, painted illustrations. So it took me a lot longer than it would have if I just went in with, an inking and a coloring, like a typical comic book system. So it was definitely a challenge, a big-time challenge. And then the lettering, I think I did okay with, but when I do it again, it will be much different. And so,
lettering is so difficult.
Yeah, it is. It really is, and it's because the fonts just are ugly. They're just ugly. And so what I realized is that I loved my favorite comic book of all time is called Silent Interlude, which is a G.I. Joe comic, which involves no words at all, and it's about Snake Eyes breaking into Cobra's lair to rescue Scarlet from Storm Shadow. And so it's this amazing adventure, and there's not a word in it. And so for me, that was always the epitome of what a good comic book could be. Mobius, Jodorowsky did a comic book called, was it The Cat? The Cat, yeah. They loved it too. And it's basically this bizarre story that has no words. And so for me, I was really determined, and I still am determined, to make comics that don't have that much lettering in it. The art tells the story. You don't need, like, storyboards, you don't, a good comic could be without words, and you could tell what it is and what it's saying and the message and the story. So for me, that's kind of the way I approach comics. I just try to keep words out as much as possible.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no worries.
I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
I know we're all going to get a lot out of it,
Thank
so
you.
It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And
you for having me here.
have a great night. Thank you.
Cool.